the United States and Iran are under a ceasefire. Yet Washington is expanding sanctions and keeping its forces ready to strike. Why stop now, if the goal is cheaper oil and lower inflation before the November midterms? The real war may begin after the vote. Donald Trump, the man making that decision, still holds interests in a personal business empire. That is the hypothesis we will test. Two clocks are running in Washington: the clock of war with Iran and the clock of the midterm elections. War around the Strait of Hormuz raises oil prices. Higher oil prices raise the cost of gasoline, transport, and everyday goods inside the United States. That makes inflation a powerful weapon against the party in power. The ceasefire may therefore have been less about beginning a real dialogue than delivering cheaper oil until the election is over. The second question is whether a president who decides on war can also retain businesses affected by presidential power. Start with the price of war. The United States Energy Information Administration says Brent crude futures began 2026 at $61 a barrel. After military action began on February 28th and Hormuz effectively closed, the price ended the first quarter at $118. Around one-fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes through Hormuz. In March, Gulf producers shut in an estimated 7.5 million barrels a day. The United States felt the shock. By June, consumer prices were 3.5% higher than a year earlier. Energy was up 15.7%, and gasoline was up 26.7%. Then, expectations of a ceasefire and a reopened Strait changed the market. Brent futures fell from $118 in late April to $72 in late June. A ceasefire is foreign policy, but it can also function as inflation policy. Expectations alone can lower prices. For a White House approaching a midterm election, few economic benefits arrive faster. But did lower oil prices mean Washington was preparing for peace? The policy record points the other way. On June 22nd, the Treasury temporarily authorized the production and sale of Iranian oil. On July 7th, it revoked that authorization. Existing transactions received 10 days to wind down, but new purchases and loadings were prohibited. Sanctions continued. On July 10th, 14th, and 24th, the United States added more Iran-related people and companies, including transport, gold, digital asset, and payment businesses. On July 28th, the White House said maximum pressure was continuing while emphasizing American naval control, intelligence coverage, and readiness to strike. The strategy is coherent. Declare that the war has stopped, reducing its immediate political cost, while preserving the authority, forces, and economic pressure needed to restart it. A ceasefire can buy time for military preparation. So why is the period after the midterms more dangerous? No published White House document schedules a new war after the election. This is an inference from public evidence. But the sequence is clear. War raised oil prices. Higher oil prices raised American living costs. Ceasefire expectations lowered oil prices. And Washington preserved sanctions and strike readiness throughout the pause. The political calendar matters because the economy leads voter concerns. In a July Pew survey, the leading issue voters wanted candidates to discuss was the cost of living and affordability. If war expands before the election, the White House must explain gasoline prices, inflation, military costs, and possible American casualties at the same time. After the election, the immediate electoral cost becomes smaller, but Washington currently looks more interested in preserving pressure and military options than building trust. If the ceasefire collapses, The period after the midterms is the most politically convenient window for escalation. This is where Donald Trump's personal interests matter. There is no direct evidence that Trump began the Iran war to make money, or a reliable figure showing what the war personally earned him. But official disclosures show extraordinary income from private ventures affected by presidential policy while he served as president. His annual financial disclosure shows about $1.2 billion in cryptocurrency income during 2025. More than $500 million came from World Liberty Financial Products, and more than $600 million from the meme coin business using his name and image. At the same time, his administration changed digital asset policy and established a national Bitcoin reserve. The president held private interests inside a market shaped by his public decisions. Defense creates another potential conflict. House Democrats asked the Pentagon Inspector General to investigate contracts involving companies linked to Donald Trump Jr.'s investment firm. The request did not establish wrongdoing. Trump also translated security in Hormuz into transactions. On July 13th, he proposed that the United States act as guardian of the Strait and collect a 20% fee on passing cargo. One day later, he replaced that proposal with trade and investment deals with Gulf states. When war, foreign deals, family investments, and presidential businesses overlap, the public has to ask whose interests a decision serves. Here is what the evidence establishes. That makes the ceasefire look less like the end of conflict and more like a political pause carrying the administration through the midterms. After the vote, the immediate political cost of renewed war becomes smaller. There is no evidence that he started the Iran war for personal profit. But when presidential decisions can benefit the president or his family, the public cannot easily know whether a war serves the country or the business interests surrounding its leader. The conclusion is simple. Donald Trump must choose. He can be president, or he can be a businessman. He should not be both. The authority to decide on war cannot remain entangled with private business. Otherwise, war risks becoming another business tool for its president. Perhaps the war clock has not stopped. Perhaps its second hand is only waiting for the midterm election to end.